Alright, this is going to be a getting started with Spring Boot video talk. It's going to show you how simple it is to use Spring Boot and why it's awesome and why you should really consider using it. So, to get started, we're going to go to start.spring.io. It's just a little initializer thing you can use to get a Spring Boot app off the ground. I'm going to make it a Gradle project. I'm just going to call it demo 1 demo app, not that. So a couple dependencies. I want a web dependency and I want actuator. And you'll see why I want those in a little bit. So that's all I need. I'm going to generate it. It's going to download. I'm going to pop this open. Drag it to my desktop. Go to my desktop. Demo app. Alright, so it's there. So now we can jump in, command line, cd to my desktop, demo app. So it generated a little skeleton, but it's a fully ready to go application. So what you can do is use the Gradle wrapper, which is a really cool thing to use because even if you don't have Gradle, never used it before, if you use the Gradle wrapper, it'll just work. It's basically a wrapper around Gradle, whereas if you don't have it locally, it'll go ahead and download it for you and then just run it. So you can use the Gradle wrapper just like you would the Gradle command. So you'll run this one on Linux or Unix-based systems, and if you're on Windows, you could run this one. So anyway, Gradle boot run, and that's going to build the application and go ahead and start it up. So since we added that actuator thing, that actually gives us some REST endpoints right away. It offers several things. You can see some of the mappings here, like metrics, beans, trace, dump. We're going to look at a couple of them. So if I jump into localhost now, 8080, I can say health. And it just gives you a little bit of information, or I could say metrics. It gives me some metrics or mappings, and it gives me all the mappings in here. And most of these mappings are actually, as you can see, actuator endpoints, all of these. So we have none of our own yet, but it's nice if you add that because then you have these out of the box. You can kind of demonstrate them. So all that with like zero coding. I'm going to go ahead and fire up IntelliJ. I'm going to kill this boot run. So I'm going to open it up with IntelliJ or import it as a Gradle project on the desktop. So demo app, okay. Gradle, next. I'll finish. So the next thing on the agenda is we're just going to throw in our very simple REST controller and show you how easy it is just to get your own custom controller out there with very little coding effort. Spring Boot has a lot of stuff automatically set up to component scan and find the things that you add. I'll just open my project here on the left, and let's see, I got Gradle. Alright, so go in here, we're going to add our own REST controller, source main Java. Alright, so there's one class in here already, and that just kind of bootstraps the application. So I'll create a new class. I'm just going to call this hello controller. Oops, did not spell that right. Just quickly rename it. Alright, so I'll give it an annotation of REST controller. I'm going to put one method in here called public string, say hello, return some text, hello, Spring Boot is awesome. Alright, one more thing, at request mapping, value equals hello. Alright, that's literally all that's needed. I'll go ahead and run boot run from the application. We'll start up from IntelliJ, and we will see that mapping come through here, right there. And if I go to a browser, I can say hello. So just like that, you know, I got a REST endpoint that's fully functional. Alright, so I'll go ahead and kill this, and I'm going to have to use the activity monitor to get rid of Java. So you know it's a common problem on Macs of killing Java from IntelliJ, and other IDEs as well. Sometimes you just have to come in here and you have to force quit these. It's a known problem. It's quite annoying actually. Alright, so they should be gone. So we got a simple REST controller up. So the final thing I'm going to show is kind of just some database access stuff, and to show you how really easy it is to tap into a local database. I got Postgres running with some a simple world database in there that has a table with a bunch of countries. So we're going to try to access that, and I'll show you how really simple it is to do that. So the first thing I need is a couple of dependencies. So I'm going to use my notes to grab those. So I need this one and the other one here. So the first one that I added is giving me JDBC stuff, like JDBC template in this case is what I'm going to use, and then I need this as a the Postgres JDBC driver so I can actually communicate. Alright, so we need that. We're going to have to refresh Gradle in order to pick up those dependencies and be available in the IntelliJ class path. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and create a class. I'm going to call it hello repo. So I'm basically creating a repository here to access data. So I'll call this add repository. All right. And I'm going to use JDBC template. Alright, so it's a common thing in the JDBC core library. Use it a lot. Highly recommend it. And I'll just auto-wire that. So Spring is going to automatically find my hello repo via this annotation. It's going to automatically configure a JDBC template. And there's one thing I need to do to actually make this work. So in resources, there's an application.properties. I need to throw the database settings in here because obviously, you know, Spring Boot can't guess where I'm trying to point my database. So I'm going to copy these properties into here. So that's all it needs to make a connection to my local world database. Right. So now that will properly wire up, I'm going to create a public list string, call it find all countries. Let's import there. And I'm going to use JDBC template. I'm going to create a query, create a new row mapper. It's going to be a string. I'll explain this in a bit. I need my query. Paste that into here. And I'm going to return from the result set get string name. Alright, so I need to assign this to a variable, introduce local variable, countries, and return countries. So JDBC template, it provides a lot of convenient stuff around JDBC, so you don't have to worry about closing connections or anything like that. Highly recommend using it. It's a simple way to contact or to interact with the database. So here's my query, and then I just use this row mapper anonymous inner class thing that takes a result set. I pull out the field here, the name, and just return that. So it's mapping this back into a list of countries, which I then return. So this should be literally all ready to go. It's all auto-wired up. JDBC template just works. So the thing I need to do now is go back to my hello controller, and I'm going to create a new public list string. I'm going to call it list countries because I'm going to try to use that use that new repository method that I created. So, I need to add it. So, if you want to use it, just say private hello repo and auto-wire it. Now here I can just say return hello repo, find all countries. And then one last thing is I need a request mapping. I'll just say countries. So it's literally all I need. Very little coding. A little bit of configuration properties in here for the database, a couple dependencies, you know, hello repo, JDBC template, all auto-wired. I'm going to run it. And it's gonna, we can go to the countries endpoint, which it looks like it should be mapped right there. Go to my browser, and boom, I got all these countries pulling from the database. So I mean, you can obviously see JDBC templates fully ready to go. I could start doing create, update, delete stuff all together, or whatever. I mean, if you wanted to use JPA or something else, I mean, you could certainly add those in as dependencies and use them. But if you just want simple database access, JDBC template can do a lot of that for you. So it's really that easy. It is really super easy. If you're going to build a Spring application today, there's not a lot of reason to not use Spring Boot. If you want to know more, I would just Google Spring Boot. And probably the first link, this link here, shows up. You can go there and you can learn more about Spring Boot. One other thing I'm going to quickly point out about Spring Boot. So I'm in the demo app here. If I go into build lib, let's first do this. We'll come back here and we'll kill this application. Again, we have to kill Java. So from here, I'm just going to say Gradle wrapper build. Just make sure it's all up to date. This is the other thing that's really cool about Spring Boot, and I'll just explain a little bit because you might wonder, well, how this happened, right? Like, you didn't see me do anything with Tomcat or Jetty or anything like that. So how is this actually running? I believe Spring Boot by default has an embedded Tomcat, so that's how it's actually serving those requests. So I build it. Now if I go into cd build lib, you're going to see there's a jar in here. Do list all. You can see that jar is 15, 16 megs, something like that. Most of that's probably third-party libraries and some kind of embedded Tomcat. So here's the cool thing. You can run the jar file. So Java, let's make sure I got the right version here. Yep, Java, jar, demo app, jar. So literally anywhere, you can just start up Spring using the jar file. Nothing else, you don't have to worry about Tomcat or Jetty. It's embedded, so you can see Tomcat started here. You can switch that out for Jetty if you want. I can go back to my URL, get that same list of countries. So if you want to go back to hello, nope. So really that simple. I hope you guys found this enjoyable and informational. I'm a big fan of Spring Boot. I recommend highly everyone play with it and try it out. Learn all you can about it. I think it's the way to build Spring applications in 2016. And you should really check it out. Thank you.